morning, dear students. Today we read Chapter 1, Section 2 of A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. So, this part is very important because it has the death of Parnell, and we have Stephen enjoyment in using words and describing things. You remember that we left Stephen cold, shivering in his bed. He was sick and he was taken to a hospital. In the hospital, Brother Michael was the one who took him in and took care of him during his stay at the hospital. Brother Michael was standing at the door of an infirmary. Infirmary means hospital. And from the door of the dark cabinet on his right came a smell like medicine. You have to pay attention that Stephen Dedalus really enjoys the senses, especially smell, taste, and because he used to rely on them because of his bad eyesight. Okay, that smell, okay, came from the bottles on the shelves. The prefect spoke to Brother Michael, and Brother Michael answered and called the prefect Sir. Notice how he's paying attention to titles. Who's a brother? Who's a sir? And then he comes to describe the appearance of Brother Michael. He had reddish hair mixed with gray and a queer look. Why was he queer? He was queer because he was wearing different type of clothes because he have a different level. It was queer too that you could not call him sir because he was a brother and had a different kind of look. Was he not holy enough? Or why could he not catch up with the others? You see, he's saying, why is he a brother? Doesn't mean he's not religious enough. That is not, developed into another level. Or maybe he was just lazy. He couldn't catch up with the others. And that moment, when he could smell the medicine everywhere and he knew that brother Michael is taking care of him, he had just a moment that it that was the infirmary. He was sick then. He knew then that he's really sick. And had they written home to tell his mother and father? But it would be quicker for one of the priests to go himself to tell them, or would write a letter for the priest to bring. You see how beautiful it is? He wants to write a letter to his mother saying, Dear mother, I'm sick. I want to go home. Please come and take me home. I'm in the infirmary. Your fond son, Stephen. And then he just thinks, he goes on with his imagination, with his stream of consciousness, how far away they were. Who were far away? His parents. His father and mother were very far. And then he just feels like if he's going to die and no one is at his bedside. There was cold sunlight outside the window. He wondered if he would die. You could die just the same on a sunny day. He might die before his mother came. Then he would have dead mass in the chapel like the way the fellows had told him it was when little had died. You know, now he is taking information from a past about a boy that died in the infirmary. His name was Little. He's remembering how the children told him how he died and how they made a mass for him in the chapel. So he's saying that if I die, it might be the same. They will bury me like they did to that boy that his name was Little. All the fellows would be at the mass, dressed in black, all with sad faces. Wills, too, would be there, but no fellow would look at him. You remember Will? Will is the bully who bullied him, who shouldered him into a square ditch. He was responsible for him being sick and he didn't like him. He said, even when I die, Wells is going to be sad and no one will look at him. The rector would be there. You know, the rector is the principal who's responsible for all of the school. The rector would be there in a cape of black and gold, and there would be tall yellow candles on the altar and around the catafalque. Okay. And they would carry the coffin out of the chapel slowly, and he would be buried in the little graveyard of the community of the main avenue limes. You know, he even imagines the place that he's going to bury at. And Wills would be sorry then for what he had done, and the bells would toll slowly. Okay, he could hear the tolling. Now concentrate that he's also referring to sounds now. We moved from the smell of medicine to the feeling of being dead and the imagery in his brain of his burial. He's now moving to sound of tolling, tolling of bells. He said over to himself the song that Bridget had taught him. Ding dong, the castle bell, farewell, my mother. You know, it's a song, but I'm not going to sing it. I'm just going to read it. Ding dong, which is the sound of the bell, the castle bell, farewell, my mother. Bury me in the old churchyard beside my eldest brother. You remember that James Joyce have lots of brothers and sisters. His elder brother had died. He just connecting it with the song. My coffin shall be black, 6 angels at my back, two to sing and two to pray, and two to carry my soul away. Now I want you just to listen to what she's going to say. How beautiful and sad that was. How beautiful the words were, where they said, "Bury me in the in the old churchyard." A tremor passed over his body. How sad and how beautiful. He wanted to cry quietly, not for himself, for the words, so beautiful and sad, like music. The bell, farewell, farewell. He's not an ordinary child. He's enjoying the sounds and everything. After that, a boy who is next to him, his name was Afi. He comes to him and he speaks to him about politics and about newspapers, and then he made a riddle. He wanted him to guess it, but Stephen couldn't guess it, and he told him there are two ways of telling a, a riddle, but I'm not going to tell you. So here, Stephen is thinking. You see, it's only stream of consciousness. He's just keep thinking and he's not saying as much as he's thinking. Why did he not tell him? Why did he not tell it? It means the other way of saying a riddle. His father, who kept the race horses, his father, he means Athi's father. Athi's father keeps race horses, and he brings him the newspaper when he can read all kind of news. He says his father, who kept the race horses, must be a magistrate. He must be a magistrate too, like Syrian's father and Nasty Roach's father. Now we're returning to social class and discrimination. This is very important. He keeps always thinking that people are not like him. He is different. They are magistrate. He is not. He's not as rich as they are. He thought of his own father, of how he sang songs while his mother played, and of how he always gave him a shilling when he asked for sixpence. And he felt sorry for him that he was not a magistrate like the other boy's father. Then Why was he sent to that place with them? But this but his father had told him that he would be no stranger there because his granduncle had presented an address to the liberator. You know, he's saying that why is he sent to in a college? Well, everyone is magistrate and rich, and he's not. He has a privilege because his father has acquaintances there, so he was sent to a school where his father could not afford. But he's saying that everyone here dressed differently, and maybe they will know his father and they don't know him. And then, when he was sleeping there in the hospital, at night, they lit the gas and lit the fire on the coal so he can see the reflection of the fire on the wall, how pale the light was at the window. But that was nice. The fire rose and fell on the wall. It was like waves. Someone had put coal on, and he heard voices. They were talking. It was the noise of the waves, or the waves were talking among themselves as they rose and fell. Now he's returning to voices, sounds, and his sensory reactions. He's comparing the waves of fire with waves of water. And he's looking from his window, imagining, for example, imagining, and or sometimes it's called a vision. He's in a vision. What? Parnell's death. He connects the waves of fire that he sees reflected on the wall with another type of waves. He saw the sea of waves, long, dark waves, rising and falling, dark under the moonless night. A tiny light twinkled at the pierhead where the ship was entering. He saw a multitude of people gathered by the water's edge to see the ship that was entering their harbor. A tall man stood on the deck, looking out towards the flat dark land, and by the light at the pierhead he saw his face, the sorrow, the sorrowful face of a brother Michael. You know, this is a vision. He's seeing as if brother Michael was standing there looking at the people. He wants to tell them what's happening. It was a dark night. The waves of fire are connected to the waves of the sea. So he is as if he's telling you that something bad is going to happen. Something is going to burn like fire, although he's talking about water. Again, the imagery of water. You see how it's repeated all over the place, and the night is moonless. Okay, what is wrong? What is going to happen that will arouse all these fears, this darkness, and this fire? He saw him lift his hand towards the people. Whose hand? We're talking about Brother Michael, who is on a ship, and he's lifting his hands towards the people, and he hear him say in a loud voice of sorrow over the waters, "He is dead. We saw him laying upon the catafalque. It means he was in a coffin and he saw him dead. It's not a rumor. Parnell is dead." A wail of sorrow went up from the people. "Parnell, Parnell, he is dead." They fell upon their knees, mourning in sorrow. You remember that Parnell is uh, is and was one of the greatest Irish nationalists and leaders of Home Rule. He was even a leader of the Parliament. It made a lot of achievement so that Ireland could be freed from Britain. But because of a religious mistake. He had an adulterous relationship with a married woman. The Catholic Church condemned him as being a sinner. So, all those prejudiced people who are um, in for religion and see people only through their religion believe that Parnell is a not good leader because he's a not good person. He's a sinner, so he should not lead. That fact that everyone he stood with, and the facts that he stood for everyone, now are abandoning him because they think he's a bad person because he made one mistake, broke his heart. He died of a broken heart. And in his vision, after seeing all the people kneeling and crying, he saw Dante, which is his ante, his governess, Dante in a maroon velvet dress. Pay attention to colors that she is wearing a dress. Her dress is maroon. You remember her two brushes? She had one brush, maroon brush for Michael Davitt, and a green brush for Parnell. And that brush that was green with for Parnell, she tore to pieces because she said Parnell was bad. Okay, now she is wearing a dress. Her dress is maroon, which means she is not for the green anymore, but she is for the maroon. But she was wearing a green velvet mantle. Mantle is like a cape. For the picture in front of you is a cape. Okay. Hanging from her shoulders, walking proudly. Why proudly? Because she's a Catholic woman who believes that sinners were punished and they should be punished for their wrongdoings, even if they were patriots or made great achievement for their country. Walking proudly and silently past the people who knelt by the water edge, kneeling. This body position, it keeps repeating, kneeling, just like in prayers, kneeling of submission, kneeling under the table and saying, apologize, apologize, pull out your eyes. Do you remember this repeated image? So, this part ends with Parnell's death. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you with the next part.